Ron, I know this is a really proud moment for you, seeing both of these companies get out the gate, rapturous on Wall Street. That said, all of the talk right now is about whether the price of both of them is just too high. I mean, what is your reaction and your take on that?
Well, I'd like to comment on what might be even more significant for our country. How apropos is it that California put Joe Biden over the edge to be the next president of this country so that we can have some civility and productivity? That's as exciting as the IPOs last week.
You are, Ron, very involved in local politics, I know. Do you think having President Biden in office will change the way business is done in Silicon Valley or has been done over the last 4 years? What will change for tech?
I think for a while, Joe Biden has really big fish to fry. He has to resolve the COVID pandemic, and he has to get the economy off the ground. I don't think Joe Biden's going to be thinking about the tech community and Silicon Valley for a while, and nor should he, given the priorities that this country needs work on.
Let's talk a little about Airbnb and DoorDash. You know, obviously they've been part of the fabric of this community. There's been controversy around their role in the community. I am curious thoughts on their public debuts and whether you think our signs were in a bubble.
Well, I actually think that DoorDash and Airbnb are mission-driven companies. They are companies that are greatly improving the life of, in the case of Airbnb, hosts who augment their income with the fees that they get from the guests. In the case of DoorDash right now, trying to keep the restaurants in this country alive, and also employing the drivers who are delivering the meals. So I actually put those two companies in the mission-driven column, which really is a proud thing for the tech community. As for the stock prices, I think Airbnb and DoorDash, they have big shoes to fill, but the markets that they serve are gigantic. You know, the travel industry is a $3.4 trillion industry, and the food delivery business is approaching a $1 trillion total available market. So these companies have a lot of headway to grow.
Now, you are still investing in a company every week, as you have been for years. And on the private side of the market, are you seeing valuations that you believe are too high?
Well, you're right. SV Angel, we invest in one new company a week for 30 years. We've been at it for a while, as you know. And valuations have crept up over the last few years. During the pandemic, valuations have kind of flattened, but they have flattened at a pretty high level. And the amazing thing is the number of founders who have the courage to start a company during the pandemic is astounding. Our deal flow rate is just the same as it's been. You know, we look at 50 to 70 companies before we invest in one company a week. So the activity level of entrepreneurs during the pandemic is pretty astounding. It has stayed steady.
Interesting. So what is your outlook on Silicon Valley emerges from the pandemic? You know, I've spoken to investors who say they're telling their portfolio companies if they have an opportunity to raise now, take the money now, because we don't know what's to come. I mean, do you think these good times will continue, or that funding could could dry up as we head into next year?
Well, I'm on the more optimistic side. Given the vaccine and assuming that gets efficiently distributed across our country, I think innovation will thrive more than ever. If the vaccine distribution for some reason had a hiccup, then I'd be a little more worried. But I don't see that happening. I'm very optimistic.
Now, given how active you are in San Francisco politics, I'm curious what you think about, the governor's response to the COVID crisis, Mayor Breed's response to the COVID crisis. We're currently in a lockdown. You've got companies leaving the Bay Area. You've got companies and tech companies leaving San Francisco. Are you concerned about that?
Wow, that's a lot to cover. As far as of Gavin Newsom's COVID response, I think he's been very, very responsive, along with the mayors across the state. And I'm absolutely delighted that the tech community is playing a huge role in California right now in curbing the spread of COVID. Apple and Google several months ago announced a software app called Exposure Notification. And California launched their exposure notification app called California Notify just a week ago. And in the last week, over 7 million Californians have turned on that app. And that app will help save lives, because if someone ends up getting COVID, just by typing in a verification code in their phone, they will anonymously let everyone know they've been in contact with over the last 2 weeks for over 15 minutes that they've been exposed to COVID, and they should quarantine and do intense testing to see if they have COVID. So the tech community is playing a really nice role here.
Now, are you concerned seeing, HPE moving to Texas, Oracle moving to Texas, Elon Musk moving to Texas? Does that worry you as someone who's, played a huge role in building up the tech community in San Francisco?
Yes, it is alarming, but I have always thought that technology should be spread all across this country and not just on the two coasts. And I think Texas now has enough, given the two announcements last week. We need tech companies to blossom and relocate to the Midwest. There's an income inequality gap in this country that is causing the divide and polarization. And by creating more jobs in the middle of our country, I think the tech community can be a big part of the solution to the polarization in the country right now, so that we have tech companies in the middle of the country as well.